Well, to discuss this further now, joining us from studios is Michael Maloof. He's a former Pentagon official. Thank you for joining us here on Press TV, Mr. Maloof. Now, looking at Dunford and his ideology, he plans to, he calls for the U.S. to go after quote-unquote non-state actors, which is basically a perpetual elaboration or extension of the U.S. war on Al-Qaeda and on terrorism, where we have seen even American citizens being targeted with its drone warfare. Do you agree with that assessment?
Well, I think General Dunford is just carrying out orders. General Dunford is going to be basically involved in winding down that war, and I think that the war basically is lost to the Americans. It's clear that that the Taliban has taken over it, and I think that ultimately there's going to be a huge power vacuum setting in. His job basically is to oversee the exit. He will carry out what the president has ordered, and that is a continued use of drones, I think, which is going to create even more difficulties for the United States because of the potential for collateral damage against civilians. It's very difficult to, even though former Secretary Gates and Defense Secretary Gates claims that drones give more precision, the reality is we're seeing more and more casualties. General Dunford is going to, wasn't even in on some of the deliberations on how many troops would remain. Clearly, his appointment to me is basically an afterthought, and he's just there to wind things down. And because the United States really wants to get out, and probably will leave some troops behind, probably around 10 to 15,000 at most, but that's going to be a totally ineffective force for even training. So the question is, what are they going to do there? Dunford is was just handed that assignment. His job is just to clean it up. He offers no insights into what he's going to be doing. He's going to carry out the policies of the administration, which basically is to continue on with drone attacks, probably to enhance them. And as you pointed out in earlier stories, that drone policy is going to become foremost in U.S. policy for the future, in what we call sixth generation warfare, where warfare is going to be fought from a couch 10,000 miles away. So it's not a happy picture, and after all these years being in Afghanistan, we have little to show for it.
Indeed, but then, in your opinion, what does Dunford then bring to the table that General John Allen didn't?
It's a rotation. He is a four-star general. He has a very good background. He's never been to Afghanistan before, but he did lead expeditionary forces into Iraq in 2003. He has been into the Middle East, but he's never been to Afghanistan. This will be his first assignment. And even though we've been there for 11 years, and I think Petraeus was in and out 3 times or so. So again, this signifies to me that he's there just to clean up the mess and turn out the lights, if you will.
And also, with the removal of these troops under the command of General Joseph Dunford, you did say that we are going to see a perpetual increase in drone strikes in Afghanistan, as well as the remainder of the troops staying there beyond 2014 for quote-unquote training purposes, which is going to make the situation a lot more complicated. What kind of a legacy then does the U.S. leave behind as far as Afghanistan goes? Because the ISAF did quote and did say earlier that the war in Afghanistan is being brought to a responsible end. Do you see it that way?
I think it's. I think for all of the resources and the lives that have been lost, it was probably. I think we gained at one point, but we lost in another because we basically deflected attention to the Iraq War, and Al-Qaeda is coming back. as well as the Taliban. And Al-Qaeda and Taliban are working very closely. It's just a question of, I think Karzai is on borrowed time, and I think that the drone attacks will continue, probably be enhanced, and that is the policy of the Obama administration. It just so happens that General Dunford will be overseeing that. But his job is going to be very difficult because he's got to basically see an exit, and at the same time he's got to make sure that what troops we do have there can be protected somehow. I think there's going to be a huge power vacuum setting in, and you have the likes of India and China now who are looking at that power vacuum that's going to be setting in, as well as Pakistan, and I believe even Iran, which has tremendous equities in Afghanistan, will be looking to do more work there. I think the U.S. is looking for a graceful exit. The U.S. feels that for what all the expenditure that we have of lives and resources, that we have very little to show for it. And I think it's just a means now of trying to figure out a way to get out gracefully, because that government in Karzai's government is so corrupt. And General Dunford during his Senate confirmation hearings acknowledged that it is a very corrupt government. And corruption really is, to me, a sign of ruin.
Okay, we're going to have to leave it there. Former Pentagon official Michael Maloof, they're joining us from studios in Washington. Mr. Maloof, it's always a pleasure having you here on Press TV.